remember watching this movie when I was 6 years old and fully believing that my toys were going to come to life the second I closed my eyes. I would not move. I would pretend to be sleeping, and I was just waiting for my toys to come alive. And along with Lion King, Pocahontas, the Pinocchio movie, this specific movie had a profound effect on me. And 30 years later, I feel old saying this, the world is still frothing over it. Younger generations who didn't even grow up with it are lining up to watch this new version, now the fifth version of this movie. Fully grown adults rushing into cinemas to watch a cartoon about plastic toys. In today's Why It Resonates, it's Toy Story. Welcome to Why It Resonates. My name is Lem Zakharia, or Lem Zakharia, and last week we didn't have an episode because old Lem here had an insane flu that left me with no voice, no hearing, but I'm back now, fully upright, back in the game. It was bloody brutal. But anyway, whinging aside, this show is about why some ideas, trends, and phenomena resonate and why others completely miss the mark through the lens of psychology, storytelling, and marketing. And out of every Disney and Pixar movie ever made, how come Toy Story is the one that refuses to die? Like, what was so interesting and mesmerizing about it? And why are we still thinking about it 30 years on? Why are adults rushing to cinemas for a cartoon? And honestly, I want to know why I personally was obsessed with it as a kid, because I spent hours and hours playing with Buzz Lightyear as a toy, and I was fully convinced that, he's going to wake up when I fall asleep. So let's get into it.
Let's set the scene.
Now, to set the scene, Pixar, the company that made Toy Story, was tiny at the time, and nobody had really heard of them. They were working on a holiday TV special inspired by a short film called Tin Toy, and it was made by a guy named John Lasseter. Now, Pixar wasn't really part of Disney at the time. They had a distribution deal with them, which meant that Disney had pretty much quite a say in what actually got made. And Disney looked at this little tiny TV special idea and said, actually go bigger than that. This is a feature film. So the earliest version of the story used a ventriloquist dummy and a one-man band toy. There were no cowboys, there were no space rangers, and those characters evolved as the team searched for something to emotionally resonate with people. So where they landed was a cowboy sheriff and a flashy space ranger, because the contrast itself made the story work, visually and emotionally. And one of the strongest early images they developed was a toy being left behind at a highway rest stop. And that image, that beloved toy, abandoned, replaced, forgotten, that became the emotional core of the entire franchise. And it took over 4 years to make this movie. And when Toy Story did come out in 1995, it was the first feature-length film made entirely with CGI, because before that, computer animation was only used just for short clips, effects, the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, stuff like that. But Toy Story ran for 81 minutes, and it proved that a fully computer-generated world could hold an audience's attention for an entire film. And that had never been done before.
So what's the impact?
People were blown away by the detail in the film. The shadow changes in Andy's room, the light glinting off of Woody's eyes and Buzz's helmet, realistic hard floors and, actual scuffs on them, textured furniture shot from toy eye level. And today this looks like nothing to us, like it looks normal. But in 1995, audiences genuinely didn't really understand how this was made. And the film grossed over $361 million worldwide. It became the highest grossing film of that year. And crucially, it wasn't just kids going to watch it. Adults were hooked too. And for the first time, animation wasn't just being dismissed as this babysitting tool. It was being taken seriously as filmmaking. To infinity and beyond, that became part of everyday language, and Woody and Buzz became household names, and millions of kids, including me, suddenly felt a deep sense of this parental responsibility towards their toys. I know kids who used to rotate which toys slept in their beds just so that none of them feel left out. So this is the level of emotional investment that this film has created.
So why did it resonate?
So here's what I want to get into, because there's a reason why this movie didn't just succeed in 1995 and just fade away. There's a reason why we're still here talking about it, watching it dragging our kids into it. And the thesis, if I had to give you only one, is this: Toy Story succeeded because it told the truth about what it feels like to be replaced, to grow up, to lose that thing that made you feel special. And it did it all through toys. So we just let our guard down completely. We weren't watching a documentary about anxiety and identity. You were watching a plastic cowboy throw a tantrum. And yet somehow by the end, you were crying in a cinema about a spaceman learning that he can't fly. So let's break that down a little bit more. The anxiety Toy Story understood better than almost any film is that fear of being replaced. Woody is Andy's favorite toy. Then Buzz arrives, and instantly Woody loses his spot on the bed. His authority over other toys was lost. And he also loses Andy's full attention. So everything he had going for him is just gone. And for kids, this is viscerally real, right? It's a new sibling. It's a new kid at school who's cooler than you. It's that terror that someone is going to take that affection of that person that you love the most. For adults, it was something even more uncomfortable. It's this like professional obsolescence, the flashier, newer colleague who walks into your office quietly, makes your years of experience feel irrelevant. And Woody's jealousy wasn't just like cute. It was ugly. It was recognizable. And that's exactly why it worked. And then there was the Buzz crisis, which goes even deeper emotionally than that. Buzz believes, with total sincerity, that he is a real space ranger on a genuine intergalactic mission. And then he sees a TV commercial and he realizes that he's a toy, mass-produced, one of millions. He tries to fly anyway, but then he fails. And for kids, this is genuinely heartbreaking, a hero who is vulnerable. For adults, it's something most of us have experienced, really. It's that moment that you realize you might not be as unique and extraordinary as you once believed, that the version of yourself that you were so certain about might just be a story that you were just telling yourself. And what made all of this land is that neither character is the villain. So traditional animation at that time gave you, a Simba and a Scar, a clearly defined hero, clearly defined evil. Toy Story gave you two protagonists, both flawed, both wrong at various points, both acting out of fear and insecurity. And the moral complexity was almost unprecedented in kids' animation, and it made characters feel like actual people. And running underneath all of that is the thing that gets you most as an adult, which is the clock. Even in the first film, there's this move that's happening, a birthday party with new toys, the sense that Andy's getting older, and this time with his toys is not going to be infinite. And that theme becomes even more explicit in Toy Story 3. Andy's going to college, and 4. But it was there from the beginning. That whole franchise was like having this long meditation on impermanence, on how nothing stays the same, on how things and people around you will eventually move on. And your job is just to find the meaning within all of that. And for parents watching this with the clock ticking by and they're watching this with their kids, this really lands as a parent. Like as a parent of a 12 and 14-year-old, I'm already in that anxious zone of like, what's going to happen when they leave the house? So it really hits home with the parents as well. Now, the last piece, now that I've talked about the emotional aspects, but there is a technical aspect as to why this film really, really resonated. And it's something that Pixar did that I find genuinely brilliant. So the team in 1995 knew that this technology could not handle organic textures, the CGI at the time. Like human skin looked very wrong on screen. Hair looked weird. Water looked wrong. So they made the entire movie about plastic and metal, right? The rigid, shiny look that was actually a limitation in early CGI became their creative advantage. So the animation looked dated, but it actually looks correctly dated, if that makes sense, because plastic is just supposed to look like plastic. And they also programmed their virtual cameras to actually behave like real film cameras. If you watch it back, you see real lighting, real depth of field, real weight. So even though nothing on screen actually existed in reality, it felt like a live-action film that happened to just star toys. And this groundedness made the emotional truth of it land even harder. But why does it resonate today, 30 years on specifically? These emotional themes that I talked about are timeless. Jealousy, replacement, growing up, finding your purpose. when, the thing that you thought turned out to be not true. These are all things that don't expire with time. But I also think it's the ritual of it too. Families have built rituals around this franchise across 30 years. Parents who watched it as kids are now watching it with their own children, like myself. There's something about, passing this down that makes it feel sacred. And Toy Story has become one of those things. And Toy Story 5 is out this week, tomorrow actually in Australia by the time this episode goes out, which means a new generation gets to feel what I felt like at 6 years old, lying completely still, just waiting for my Buzz Lightyear toy to move. As I wrap up, I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite production facts. At some point during the production, the entire film was accidentally deleted from Pixar servers. The whole thing, it was gone. And as a producer, this is like my nightmare. And it was only saved because one animator happened to be working from home with a newborn baby and had a backup copy. So just saying, that's why working from home saves lives and franchises, apparently. But I'm going to be watching Toy Story 5 and find out about, whether they managed to build on that legacy or if they completely blew it. I have a good feeling about it, though. So pitch in topics for next week. We have an Instagram that you can find out about in the show notes, or it's just the name of the podcast itself. Follow or subscribe for free to get updates on the next episode, which I genuinely don't know what it's going to be about. So till then, from me, Lem, have a beautiful day or night, wherever you are.